I've been reading these. I've been reading this book, like actually reading. I'm so proud of myself. But it's I I came across it and I couldn't find it like on Kindle or on a site that I can read to me, and so I was like, man, I'm gonna have to actually read. And then I put it. So I pulled up the website where I was reading it off of, and you can have like the website read it to you. And so I pressed like, oh, read it to me, but it sounded so crazy, and I sent it to my sister because we were talking about because she reads books all the time. And she was like, it doesn't even sound like they're speaking English in this reading. And so I was like, I guess I have to actually read the book. And so I've been like up all night reading and going through it. I'm like, just hooked on it.
Nice. We're like twins. I went to a half price bookstore yesterday and like found some really good books on self esteem and some like paranormal fantasy books. So I was like, man, I haven't like read a physical book in a long time and it felt good.
Mhm. And it's like I just been like wrapped up in it and just giving myself time to kind of escape life. Because like one of the things I've been talking to people about, I can't remember if I mentioned this last time or not. How long has it been? Maybe I haven't. But I've been in this place of it's not. Yeah, I think I did talk about this. I think it was a previous topic, and I was talking about like I was talking about like burnout or something. But I was like in this place where I recognized it not as burnout, but if somebody else was like hearing me talk about it, they would be like, "Oh, that's burnout," and I'm like, "No, it's not. I'm a therapist. I know things." But that's what it was. I was like, "No, I know myself. I know my body. That's not what it is." And so I was sitting having a conversation with ChatGPT because that's my best friend, and I was like kind of going through it and I was kind of describing it to it, and it was like it sounds like you're not in alignment, and I was like, that's it. And so I go over to the pattern app and I was like looking at my transients, and I was like, oh, I forgot what it was called, but it was like a growth or something kind of stage. And so I was in this place where I was supposed to be like doing a lot of transitioning, getting back in alignment, taking away the things that like noticing what I had gotten away from and being able to kind of get back to what I was supposed to be focusing on. And I was like, look at that. I was like, see, I knew I was right, that it wasn't burnout.
Nice. It sounds like something was off.
Yeah. I was like, why did I start talking about that? But the reading of the book, like reading of books, has come with stepping away from constantly working and trying to like throw myself at everything to kind of see what sticks. And I'm like, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to read these books and I'm going to let the universe sort things out. And it's funny because I've lost like one associate and one intern in like the past week. And I was like, look at that. And most people be like, oh my gosh, that's bad. And I was like, no, I was like, because what I was finding is that I was taking on associates that I didn't necessarily need to be taking on because they were too much work for me. And I never wanted to, you know, build in that way. I wanted to help get to authentic self, not build up a person altogether. And I felt like I was in a place where I was needing to build versus helping them find their authentic therapist voice. I was like, that's what my desire is. That's what I want to do. And then, like with the intern, nothing was wrong with the intern, but it was more of a I don't like all the extra stuff that I have to do with like assignments and talking to professors, and then I'm having to find them clients, and I'm like I'm not in a season of wanting to market right now to help them find clients. And so I was like, okay, the things that I the things that aren't serving me are that are not in alignment with what I want are removing themselves. And so I've just been sitting here reading and saying, okay, what else we're gonna remove?
I
But
love
it's
that.
nice.
I love that. It almost seems like you're in a recalibration. Maybe that's what that out of alignment feeling felt like. Especially with the two eclipses this month, like the energy has been crazy. Even though it hasn't, I haven't necessarily felt it, but just like with people coming in session, it's like the energy has been like really heavy and like really
Mhm.
chaotic.
Yeah. And that's like when I went on my birthday trip. Like the day I came back on a Wednesday. It was my son's birthday. And so we celebrated his birthday. And I was like laying in bed that night and I was like, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. And I was like, Tia, you don't work. You have a business. Like this is your baby. But I was like, see, that's how I know something isn't right anymore. That I thought of waking up in the morning and going to work. And it's funny because I had saw this TikTok and the lady, she was I don't know what, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I just heard the first part of it. And she was talking about how she's like, has your passion started to feel like work? And I was like, yes. And it's like you have these ideas, you build this business, and then you put so much into it that it's no longer like what you're passionate about anymore. And I was like, I have built my practice to where it needs to be. And I need to refocus on some of my other like passions and things that I want. My business can, my therapy practice can carry itself. It's fine. But I was like, Tia, you know that book that you were writing? How about you get back to that, both of them? And so I reopened my books and was working on my books. I realized I don't like the first chapter. And so I was like, it doesn't feel like me. And I was like, no, now I have to rewrite this whole thing. But I was like, I still want all the information in there, but it's not in the way that I would deliver it. And I was like, no, I need to deliver it differently.
Yeah.
But I'm still like getting back to what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. It almost sounds like you got away from the project and you came back to it and saw it with new eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like so much of what you're doing is like kind of mirroring what I'm doing. I started looking into like publishers, like should I self-publish? Should I get,
Mm-hmm.
a publishing company? And I felt like really overwhelmed and I was like, okay, this is my sign to kind of take a step back. So I just started like I have a to-do list of stuff I do and stuff the universe does. And I was like writing my first book publishing and I put on the universe side and I actually, my partner was at a book signing, met a publisher, and then I got his IG. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, okay, well, maybe that's not like an accident.
Yeah. And I'm going to this and so one of the places that I use for billing, they offer us like free continuation CEUs and like workshops and things like that. And I'm doing one next week. And it's just happened to be like, it's funny because it was what it is, it was talking about, it said AI and like self-publishing and stuff like that. And I was like, that's interesting. So I clicked on the email and then I see like all this other stuff. And I was like, oh, this wasn't what the tag said. But as I got to the bottom, I then saw like the different workshops on publishing. And so I'm doing one. What day is it? What's not this? Yeah, next week. I was like, I don't even know what day it is. On the 8th, and it's book publishing one-on-one. And so there's a book publishing one-on-one, and then like the next one talks a little bit more about like the self-publishing and which route to go and how to stay focused and things like that. And I was like, look at that. Just popping up in my inbox. So I'll record it for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I love that though. Like when I do feel like I'm controlling too much, I think that's where I feel overwhelmed or kind of like lost. And then
Mhm.
when I take a step back, it's like the universe comes in because sometimes when we're doing too much, we can like let the universe know, like, oh, I don't need your help. I got it. And I'm like, no, I don't got it. Like, come in and help me.
Yeah. And I'm really big on just kind of focusing on like the things that I feel like I can control and then just letting the rest kind of be taken care of. That's how I've dealt with my anxiety. It's one of the things I talk to people about in terms of dealing with their anxieties. Like you don't have control over all these things. So find that one thing that you do have control over and stick to that. And it had reminded me of something I did not this past New Year's, we're almost to a whole nother year, but the previous one, I had saw this thing on TikTok, and it's like you come up with like 12 things that you want to do within the next year. And it was like right before, I think it started maybe before Christmas. You were supposed to pull like one thing out of the list to make a, write them all on strips of paper. You're supposed to pull one thing out each day for, 11 days. And you just put them over into the jar, put them over into a jar. And the very last thing that you pulled on the last day, that was the one thing that you were supposed to focus on. And everything else you were supposed to just put out there and leave to the universe. And of course, the one thing that I was supposed to focus on was like weight loss. And I was like, well, of course that makes sense. The universe can't take care of that for me without like giving me cancer or something, you know, doing something drastic. And so, um, but then I'm like, when I went to Chicago for my birthday, I was just kind of sitting on this water taxi going from downtown to Chinatown. And I started thinking, I was like, Tia, you're traveling by boat right now. And I realized that one of the things that I had put on the list was I wanted to travel by train, plane, boat, and bus. And then I sat here and realized, I was like, Tia, you did that all this year already. I was like, but you didn't clarify. You just said travel. And so travel is moving from one destination to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, yes, I did. I traveled by plane. I did multiple trips this year. But then, like, when I went up to Denver for my daughter's birthday, I traveled from Denver to Fraser on the Amtrak train. Really cool. Um, and so I was like, okay, that was the train. And then, like, when I was like in Atlanta, we used the bus to move around the city. Not the idea of bus travel I was talking about. I was talking about, I don't know if you've seen those Von Lane luxury buses. I was like, I wanted to do that, but I didn't clarify. I just said travel by bus. And then I was like, the travel by boat was supposed to be like a cruise. I didn't clarify that either. I just said travel by boat. And I'm like sitting here on this boat, realizing I was like, okay. I always like the universe be funny. I was like, don't think what happened jokes. You knew what I meant. But it reminds me like you have to clarify these things. But I put it out there, and even though it didn't come in the calendar year, it still came. And so now I was like, what else was on that list? Let me go back and look at that list to see if any of the other things have happened yet that I just wasn't kind of aware of or hadn't focused on.
Yeah, it's interesting sometimes how your manifestations come to you, and if you're not like super specific, like you'll get what you get.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if you've been seeing that trend on TikTok, like how are the therapists? Like, oh, you're all okay, but it's just been running on my timeline for the last like 2 weeks, and I just thought that was interesting with eclipse seasons and changing and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I don't know. When I think about those posts, I'm like, how are the therapists
Hmm.
doing?
And you know what? Like I was looking at like the list of topics and things like that, and I was thinking about myself, and I was like, I feel like there's a lot of things that are going on with me, and I'm having to still focus in session, but I'm having the hardest time because usually I can refocus myself, I can crochet, I can do something, but I'm finding myself like staring at my clients, going off into la la land, coming back, realizing I don't have a clue what they just said. And I was like, Tia, focus. And so I'm having to like really pay attention and lock in on something that the client's talking about, or something that's in their background, or something to kind of keep my brain from going off, because like my mind is like swirling, trying to get itself back into its own alignment. And it's like, okay, I hear y'all. I know this is my job, but I was like, my brain is also chaotic right now.
Yeah, and it could just be the energies. Like,
Mhm.
we might not be experiencing things personally, but the energy has been so heavy and like session after session. And I've been feeling like this anxious, like overwhelming energy. And I just been thinking about how can I transmute this and turn it into something else. So I've just been increasing my walking or taking naps, but just really trying to find ways to get the energy out because all the energy staying in your body just feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And one of the things that I noticed this past week, I did something really weird in one of my sessions. And I think it was more of me picking up on like the internal feeling of my client. And so I responded physically in a way that I would have expected for them to respond. And something had happened, and I ended up like ducking in the session. And I was like, why did you do that? And I was like, I think I'm picking up on their own internal like nervous system reactions. And I have been noticing that I've been feeling more. anxious in sessions and stuff. I was like, I think I'm picking up on their stuff. And I usually have really good control over like keeping their energy to them and my energy to me, because I know how that happens. I was like, I ain't got no time to be carrying anybody else's energy. And so, but it was like really weird. And it just like surprised me. I was like, did you just duck? I was like, why did you do that? And I was like sitting there thinking about it. And I had some conversations with some other therapists about it. It was just like really weird.
I bet like the energy is just really strong and chaotic. I know one thing that's been coming up for me is like visualization exercises have been helpful in session, and cord cutting. There has been a lot of cord cutting exercises and how to kind of like almost protect your energy against like the news and social media and like maybe people around you, but really just finding ways to like take your power back, calling your power back, because I think right now the collective is just very scattered energy and just feeling drained.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of visualization stuff too. It's actually my favorite. It's something that I love to do just because I'm a very visual person and I live in my head creating these worlds for myself. And so helping people to be able to kind of create that own like their own scenes basically for themselves. And I was like, when you can see it, you can achieve it. But if you can't see it, you can't achieve it. The brain cannot get to something that it's never seen before. And so it's like you have to like create these visualizations to be able to move yourself in those directions. So I've had a lot of fun helping people kind of like go through this. And I've worked with a lot of clients. I'm starting to like do like scripting and to really help them visualize it. And they were like, this is how you, I was like, yeah. I'm like, I don't write my own scripts. ChatGPT is really good at writing my scripts for me. But it's also because it knows me very well. And so I I was teaching them how to like I've taught them how to prompt ChatGPT in case they can't do it themselves. Because sometimes when you're first starting off out, you don't understand, you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to phrase things. And so I've been giving them like a prompt based on like what they're experiencing in their life. I was like, put this prompt in there and see what it generates. And so they're sitting here writing down all these like prompts. I was like, I'm really good at giving these prompts for ChatGPT, but it's because I use it all the time.
Nice. Yeah. And you know, when I notice like most clients, when I ask them, like, are you able to see pictures? Are you able to like think of a green apple and see it? Like, most people I talk to, like, aren't able to tap into that, and it takes some practice. And I just feel like it's such an untapped superpower that you can utilize. Like, you can utilize visualization anytime throughout the day, and you can make them up and be creative. But I think as a therapist, once we're planting those seeds of visualization, clients will come back and they'll come up with really creative ways to come up with visualizations, and I still do. So
Yeah. And one of the things that I do is like I will be like, go look at TikToks, look at YouTube, pull up pictures when you're envisioning that future life. Say you want to move cities, go look at apartments, on apartments.com, or go look at houses, that you want to live in those areas. I would like go through that floor plan, walk through it, imagine yourself, start putting furniture in it, just really kind of creating. People like, I never thought to do that. I was like, I've decorated so many houses in my head just because it gives me that opportunity to know what I'm aiming for. And it gives my life kind of direction, but versus what I see a lot of people, like when you say they don't have, like they've lost their power, it's like they're just floating around, like not grounded. And I was like, this is how I ground myself. It's like I figure out what am I focusing on? What's my intentions? What am I moving towards so that I know how to, live out my life each day. And it's kind of like what we talk about, like with manifestation, and people think that they can just be like, well, I'm going to be a millionaire and then just go to sleep and be a millionaire. It's like, it doesn't work that way. You have to kind of create the avenues in order to be able to receive. And so it's like, okay, you have this idea of you want to be a millionaire. Now, what avenues are you going to create to be able to receive that?
for sure. Because I think the visualization really helps you like hone in on the details, and then it can kind of create that inspired action, because we do have to take those small actions to let the universe know that's what we want. And I find like a lot of my clients, when they visualize more, they actually feel less anxious and they worry less because they're focused more so on what they do want versus what they don't want.
hmm And it's one of the things like when we think about like thought stopping. And so when you're feeling anxious and you're spinning around all these thoughts of people like, oh, just to visualize a stop sign. But I always tell people, it's like, you can't just visualize that stop sign. You have to give your brain something else to do. And so I was like, by having like already these visualizations or working on them, it's like, I'm going to stop thinking about this and I'm going to start decorating my apartment in the Bahamas that I want to go and get. And so it gives your brain something else to do. This week, I started phrasing it a little bit differently because I used to always just say, give your brain something else to do. Like say no, stop the thought and give your brain something else to do. But I said it to somebody and I was like, and so I've been using it ever since then. And I was like, it's kind of like when you're up against a bully and this bully is like picking on you and picking on you. And you can't beat this bully yet. But what you're going to do is that you're going to punch them and then you're going to run. They was like, what? I was like, yeah, just punch them and run. And so it's the idea of the bully being like the anxiety or the negative thoughts or whatever. And it's like telling you that you're not enough, you suck. And you're going to be like, no, that's not true. And then you're going to take off running and go give your brain something else to do. And so it's like a punch and run. And people are like, I love that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start using punch and run. Just punch and run.
No, I think that's really good. With my clients, I typically will say visualize the stop sign. And then I'm like, the stop sign is to create a pause. I said, and then at that point, I want you to ask yourself, how can you feel more comfortable in your body? And everybody's different. Everybody's example is going to look different. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's a bath, maybe it's a nap or a funny show. But whenever you give yourself that pause and then you ask yourself that question of how to feel comfortable in your body, it's kind of like what you're saying, like it gives your brain something to do.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things I tell people, even like when I'm talking to like interns who are new, and I was like, use the strengths of your clients. They already have some tools that work for them. And you just have to be able to make sure that you can, bring them in. And so when I tell them to go give their brain something else to do, I was like, what already works? What do you know that works with you? And they'll say things like, oh, taking a nap or going to go bake or something like that. And I'm like, well, go do those things. And there's going to be some times where like you can't just be at work and be like, I'm going to go bake because I'm having negative thoughts. But it's like being able to start training your brain. Like, I'm not going to sit here with these thoughts. I'm not going to allow you to sit here and talk to me like I'm crazy.
Exactly. Because I always tell my clients, like, even if you're at work, if you're in a meeting, you are always in a position to practice some type of coping skill. Like, you just don't have to leave yourself out in the cold, whether you're self-soothing with physical touch, whether you're talking to yourself in a kind way or in a compassionate way. Like, there's always time to self-soothe yourself. But I think sometimes with people, they feel like, well, I'm in this very stressful situation. Like, there's nothing I can do in this moment.
Yeah. And I think that it's one of those things where I'll start showing people like some of the things that I do, like even right now, like not that anything is wrong, but I'm sitting here and I'm like rubbing my hands. And it's just like, it's one of those soothing things where you feel like, ooh, that pressure and like I'm here, I'm present, creating a sensation, things like that. And it's like, there's a lot of things that you can do without even realizing, or that you probably already do without realizing. I'm like, I've seen so many clients who just like rock. And that's one of those self-soothing things going all the way back to like infancy when our mothers or fathers or caregivers or whoever would like rock us, or when we were in the womb and we were rocking ourselves. And so people would just like naturally rock, starting to like self-soothe themselves.
Yeah, I do something similar. Like I usually have like a crystal or a stone, and I'm like playing with it in my hand. And I'll tell clients maybe like I don't know, they call it a worry stone, but maybe there should be a different word for that. But some type of stone or maybe a fidget ring, like you're essentially taking that energy from your body and putting it into that object, or even like doodling, like when you're in class. And a lot of my clients that struggle with anxiety, they say that it actually really helps.
Yeah. And I remember I went to school with a girl who would always like twirl her hair, but then I started realizing I do the same thing too. And so I have this like one hair that's like longer than everyone else, all the rest of them. And I would just sit here and I would play with this one strand of hair.
You're trying to get that nervous energy out.
Mm-hmm. I was like, it was tucked behind, so you couldn't see it. I was like, where is it? I know it's over here. I know exactly which one it is.
Yeah. sometimes you just got to get the energy out, because if it just stays in your body, it's going to go in your head, and then you're going to overthink. And then I think about it as like having too many tabs open in your brain and you have programs running. And I think that's why people feel so exhausted. They're like, I'm so exhausted. I haven't gotten anything done today. And I'm like, yeah, because you have all those programs running in the
Yeah.
background.
And it makes me think about also like going all the way back to like the reading of the book. What has also happened is like I'm not on social media because I'm reading this book for hours at a time. But it's also reducing how much stimuli that I get because I'm not constantly like, 1 minute video, 2 minute videos, 3 minute video, 30-second video of all these different topics going through my head as I scroll through social media. And so I was like, you alive over there?
Went down the wrong pipe.
Yeah, and so by reading, I'm like focusing on one thing, and yeah, the scenes are changing, the things are happening differently within the story, but it's all focused in one area versus being like inundated with all these different things, plus my life and this going on and that going on, and even I think about like last night, my daughter was at my sister's house, and my daughter she had texted me, and she was like, my eye itches. I'm like, okay, she be having itchy eyes every now and then. And so I just told her to go get some eye drops from my sister. And then my sister calls me and she was like, I think something's wrong with her eye. She's like, it's like a thick film jelly like in her eye. And it's like moving towards her iris, like it's gonna just grow and like overcome it. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna come get her and see what's going on. And my sister had some like prescription eye drops, and so she had given her that. And so I just kind of looked at it. I was talking to her, Google searching, diagnosing. It didn't say she had cancer. I was surprised, but and it was like what everything that was coming up most of was like an allergen. I was like, let me just give her some Benadryl.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave her some Benadryl. I gave her an ice pack to put on her eye, and she was fine. She was telling me that she ate a lot of peanuts and she had a seafood bake. And I was like, well, what was in the seafood bake? And I'm thinking it's maybe like an allergen to like the mussels that was in there. And I was like, that may be what it was that kind of had a negative like reaction on her. But I was thinking, I was like, I was able to really focus on, jumping into this, figuring this out, treating her, not panicking because I wasn't overwhelmed because all I've been doing is reading books.
Nice. So those mindfulness exercises seem like they really paid off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, she has picture day tomorrow though. And I was like, it's still a little swollen, but not bad. And I was like, you may want to skip picture day.
Well, maybe she could do the retake.
Yeah, that's what I was like, because I don't know how it's going to look tomorrow.
Yeah. So like in regards to, TikTokers and people saying like, are therapists okay? Like, what are the things that you've been doing like these last 2 weeks to kind of like recharge and like protect your energy? I know you said reading, but anything else that maybe can help people?
One of the things I have noticed too is that I am just allowing people to be. And by that, I mean like people have their own opinions, they have their own thoughts, and I'm not getting myself entangled in all of that. And so even like I think about, as a therapist, we don't always know, what the viewpoints of our clients are, what their belief systems are. And sometimes like things happen and those things will come out to the surface. And it's like you're sitting there like, oh. Ugh. But at the same time, like what I have done is like, I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to make any judgments. I'm just going to be present. How they view things is based on their own lived experiences. And frankly, it doesn't impact me. And so being able to just allow people to be versus trying to challenge people or, sway people or, give them my viewpoints. It's more of I don't have tons of energy to give, and I'm definitely not giving energy to this. And so it's a very much of a just protecting my energy in essence. And it's like you can think whatever you want to think. And also in doing that and just kind of listening to people, I realize that a lot of people, they are saying something similar to me. They're just delivering it in a different way that sounds crazy. And I'm like, wait, what's and so I'm like, I'm just going to not give this any energy. I'm not going to um, allow for the people that I interact with on a weekly basis, every other week, to start impacting me. And it kind of goes back to, I don't want to say putting up a wall, but like more putting up my protective shield. And it's like, I'm not going to allow your energy, your thoughts, your opinions, all that to kind of impact me. What I've been, you know that I can be conspiracy theory ish. And so I was actually, I don't think this is a conspiracy theory. So I've been looking at different things in terms of what's going on with our country. And on like the spiritual side, one of the things they've been talking about is energy harvesting. And so I'm like, you know what? I am not allowing any of my energy to go out into the world to be harvested. And so it's like I'm taking this effort to make sure that I stay as grounded as possible. And so that's a long answer to probably to what I've been doing, but it's all influenced by like just kind of protecting my energy.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think for me, I've just been doing more check-ins, just checking in on my needs if I need anything. That has been really helpful. But I think most importantly with clients, like in sessions, like I'll set my intentions before a session, maybe put up protection, light a white candle before sessions. But my thing has been really focusing on like what tools or support does the client need in this moment? Because it's like I'm not there to fix things. I'm not there to give an answer. I'm just there for support. So that has been like very helpful for me because I really just wanted to be intentional with not overworking, like working more than the client. And proud of myself, like I did really good with, not allowing people to drain my energy.
Yeah. And I think also it's important to remember, like, as a therapist, that is our role is support. And so it's not to come in there and figure out, everything and solve their problems and give all this advice and make them happy or whatever it may be. It's very much to be supportive. And so remain maintaining that kind of role for ourselves is just like, I'm a support. And one of the things that I will tell people frequently is that I don't have anything for you. And it's more of a, I don't have a solution. I don't have any words to make you feel better. I don't have anything for you. And it's just a matter of I'm here present for you to have this space to dump things. What's also funny though is I've had a couple of clients, it's funny, and they're like not wanting to like dump stuff on me. And I'm like, that's my job. Come on, just dump it all out. You don't have to apologize. If you want to sit here and rant and rave this whole session, I'm here to listen. How do you want me to respond? Because I can be like, ooh, what else happened? Or I can be like, oh, that's interesting. What do you need? What kind of reactions do you need from me right now?